Do you have a few minutes?
I gotta make some changes in my life. Do you even realize what your life means?
Morning Cup of Joe, a Missouri S&T podcast using pop culture to destigmatize mental health.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
Do not self-destruct.
I didn't ask for this to happen.
Join us in using everyday examples to explain usable techniques to help improve your mental well-being.
Stay a while and listen.
Welcome back, minors. My name is Tracy Kriegel, and I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing.
And my name is Amber Johnston, and I'm also a counselor here in Student Wellbeing, and it's time for your Morning Cup of Joe. This week, I want to talk about stress.
No, stress, really, again? No.
That's kind of how stress is, though. Like, you're like, no, really, not this again, please.
It's always stressful.
We all experience it. We all have deadlines. We have new relationships. We have, relationships that end. We have, homework.
Babies.
Yeah.
New babies. We've got new babies in the department getting ready to have.
Yes.
Yay.
We do.
Exciting.
Yeah. We got two of them.
Two new babies coming, yeah.
Yeah. It seems like there's been one baby after the other since I started. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But babies can be stressful. New moms being stressful.
Yes.
Exciting, but stressful.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that can cause stress in our lives. And every single day we have things that cause us stress. People badly driving, road construction.
From St. James to Rolla, for those who are driving in from the east, yes.
I was thinking about all the construction out here in front of, driving through.
Is that Pine Street?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for all you students who are coming to campus this semester or around campus, construction around campus, yes, every side of campus has construction practically.
Well, right, and walking from the parking lot, and there's nowhere to really walk because it's
all over campus.
Hopefully it'll be all done by the time this podcast airs.
Yeah, well, and you think just the construction around, over by the Innovation Lab and getting ready for the new admissions area and the garage.
That parking lot or parking garage they're putting in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of those are little stressors that pop in, and it seems like our lives just have all this stuff happening all at once.
I'm over here laughing because how many people have you seen trip over those fences from Havener? Have you seen people trip?
Yes,
you
did.
I did.
When I had that wig on for Halloween, and I couldn't see my feet because it had so much hair.
I have seen I've tripped over it, but bless their hearts, I have seen so many students trip over that fence. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping by the time classes start this fall, if you're hearing this and there's no longer a fence there, you can thank our lucky stars that fence is gone. But so many students have tripped over that fence, and it's just been...
Because it sticks out a good, 6 to 9 inches from the side of the fence. It's like this leg coming out that's just, there in the walkway going, oop, I'm going to trip you.
That is stress. It's like, here I am, stressed.
So we've previously done an episode on stress. We did one on Game of Thrones and the chronic stress and the acute stress response, and then we did one on the tiger and the tiger in the room, which was the chronic stress response. And we did one recently,
Fight and flight.
Fight or flight, yeah. We did one on that, and that was when we did polyvagal.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked about stress quite a bit.
Show of hands for people in the audience who has not dealt with stress. I can't see anybody.
You crack me up, ma'am. But this week, I want to focus on how the process of experiencing stress can make us more stressed. The more stressed we are, the more stressed we are about being stressed. When we get that kind of stress, that gets into those unhealthy coping mechanisms, which, again, we've beaten that horse. It's dead.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone. And some of it in the way our bodies, and some of it comes in the way as our body handles stress, because when our body is handling the stress, those ways that it does that, like the way that it processes that stress, is actually stressful. So think about it, like, I am feeling stressed, therefore my blood pressure goes up, and that increase in blood pressure then now causes me stress. So it's like my body's coping with the stress by causing myself more stress. That's a lot of use of the word stress.
You're making me stressed by saying stress. So over here going, she's saying stress like 5 million times, and I'm going, I'm getting stressed by hearing the word stress.
There you go.
But we were created to experience stress because of a lack of food, needing to get away from a predator, things like that. At one point in time, the amygdala was seeing that fight and flight. Like we were those people who were made to forage for food. So we were in
out there with
tune.
our
Yeah.
big mallets.
Yeah. So our spears and stuff, we were
Yeah.
in tune to do that, but we don't have to be that way anymore.
Yeah.
So we could just go in the kitchen and, grab a PBJ. So it's like, hey, I don't have to go out there and, fight for a tiger or a fish or, whatever. So.
Well, but that stress response, those stress responses were made to keep us safe.
Yep.
But unfortunately, the world has learned that it needs to be faster, louder, and more engaging for our senses in order for us to be able to respond to it.
Yep.
Because we're getting numbed to all that stimulation. And because that's the state, now we've got even more stuff happening to us faster and faster and faster, and our bodies aren't made to cope like that. They're just not. They're made to have those quiet, staring at the stars and
Right.
little quiet periods. But when does modern life really allow us to have that?
Right. I guess when you think about cavemen, didn't they have quiet time?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. They had to have had quiet time. There was no hustle and bustle back then.
Yeah. You went and caught your gazelle and then you went and took a nap.
Hey, come over here.
Yeah. Go and hunt your buffalo or, whatever, and your woolly mammoth. And,
Yeah.
and then...
There was no street lights. Everything was starlit, so it was easy to be somewhat more relaxed.
Yeah, but now we don't have the ability to really shut that off, because when you think about, prior to electricity, when it got dark, you worked by firelight, but there wasn't a whole lot you could do, and you didn't go too far away from where the heat source was.
Sure.
You stayed pretty close to home. Now we're all over the place. It's dark, we're out going. We go shopping, we'll go, how many students have you heard they're going grocery shopping at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 a.m.?
In New York, the city never sleeps. Seriously, when we went to New York, we walked so many miles. I bought Skechers at 4 o'clock in the morning because my feet hurt. But 4 o'clock in the morning, the Skechers store was open. I was like, really? Yes, they were open at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, that was the coolest thing because I like to shop. But I was like, went to Macy's at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, we were at the Skechers store. I was like, this city is always awake. It was so cool. But I'm thinking, yes, prime example.
Of stuff never stops.
Stuff never stopped. Always.
It never
always,
stops.
always.
And even if we're at home, how many of us are on our phone? Or we're binging Netflix, or we're, doing whatever.
Scrolling
homework.
through TikTok, we did an episode on that, being addiction to TikTok. So yeah,
Scrolling through TikTok. We're doing all these things and we're doing it all the time. So I want you to take that idea of stress makes us stressed. Okay. And the fact that our response to, having these things happen in our life those negative impacts on our body and how those negative impacts build upon each other. So the negative impacts are now more things added to that plate of stuff we've got to deal with, and add to the fact that now we don't get the downtime.
Right. There is none.
So it just leads to this place. So like if we want to go into it, let's say I have an upcoming presentation and I'm worried about the presentation coming up. So I can't sleep because of the presentation. Now, because I can't sleep because I'm worried about the presentation, now I'm tired on top of being not able to sleep about the presentation. So now that's that added stressor on top of the stress. Now, did the stress about the presentation go away? No. Now I've got the extra one of I haven't slept.
Right.
So then now we're going to add into the fact that because I haven't slept, now I can't focus. Because I can't focus, now I've got, and it does what we call a cortisol spiral.
Right.
Our stressors start spiraling, and it's kind of like a corkscrew downward.
Right. You're just adding and compounding the problem because you're probably not eating right, your energy level's low, and you're just more problems are compounding.
Yeah. So it was quick story time. So I, a couple years ago, took my son to the Rolla Carnival. Okay. And while we were at the carnival, they had the octopus ride. And my son was, oh, good Lord, 7, 8, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And anyway, so we get up on this octopus, and for those of you who are familiar, like an octopus ride is like, it looks like a giant octopus with these arms coming off, and each arm has 2 little cars, and the cars spin around the base, like the arms, and the whole thing spins in a circle.
Pods.
The little pods that you sit in spin around the base. And each individual pod then also spins. So you're spinning around the base, but then you have the ability to control the spin of the individual car. So while we're in this pod thing, my son decided the bar that caused us to spin, he started pulling on it, which caused us to spin, which caused him to panic, which caused him to pull the bar harder. So we're spinning he's pulling, like the faster we spin, the more he pulls the bar. The faster the more he pulls the bar, the faster we spin until we're at max speed. And we are like whipping in circles. I'm literally got my arms out holding him in and into the thing because I'm afraid we're going to fly out because we are just like
Round and round
zooming
and round and
round and round. Like I can't see anything. Everything's a blur. And we're just going faster and faster and faster.
And the octopus goes up and down.
Yes,
So
so I'm
it
going up
tilts
and
up and
down
down
and
and
around
round
and
and
around
around.
and around and around in smaller circles. So like I'm dizzy, like it's a hot mess.
Yeah.
So the reason why I want to, like, I got him to stop, by the way, but I had to get him to let go of the bar.
This is good. Oh, I'm feeling dizzy and nauseated for you.
I told him I'm never getting on that ride again. Like, we're done. Never getting on that ride again. But the reason why I tell this story is think about the cortisol spiral and how much we do that. Because I think this thing's going to save me and make me, and so I lean into it. I use it more, like he was pulling on that bar. But
It's making it go faster.
it's making it go faster. I think if I stay up and cram for this test, that I'll be able to do better on the test, but instead now I've made myself more stressed because I now have lack of sleep on top of it. So that's how that cortisol spiral works, is because we're adding things on top of things, and when that happens, it just causes that car to spin faster and faster.
Right, exactly. Had I gone to bed earlier, maybe gotten my 8 hours of sleep, got up maybe at 8 o'clock, spent 2 hours in the library studying, then went to class, that would have been more productive had it have been stayed up till 2 o'clock cramming and slept until 9 o'clock. People don't recognize the difference in that because they're so in tune to staying up so late versus in sleeping in longer. So
Right.
Yeah.
Like we don't realize how much that plays into it. Like, because it's like when we get stressed, we start thinking of those things like sleep as disposable.
right.
Like I don't need sleep. Who needs sleep? Sleep's for the weak. I've heard. Can you count how many times you've heard that? Sleep is for the week.
Sleep for the week. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not. It's a necessary biological function we need in order to be at our peak performance. And when I don't get enough sleep, I lose my ability to focus. When I lose my ability to focus, now I get more anxious because of having a harder time focusing. It's taking me longer to get things done. Because it's taking longer for me to get things done, now I'm more anxious, which causes it make it harder for me to sleep, and I'm in that downward spiral.
Right, exactly.
When we have these whole things, why I call it the cortisol spiral, like to get into that piece of it. The reason why is when we are feeling stress, our body produces a hormone called cortisol, and it's the most well-known of the stress hormones. It's most frequently. And cortisol is vital for a large number of bodily processes. Like, we need cortisol. And it's always getting a bad rap, like you hear about cortisol blockers and all these things. Like,
It's stress hormone. It can cause you to gain weight. And
it absolutely does. But it serves a function. Our bodies need it because when we're in a life or death situation, all of those effects of a cortisol are beneficial. Okay? If I'm in a time of famine, do I need the ability for the cortisol to cause me to retain weight and gain weight? Yeah.
Because it gives you that burst of energy as well.
Yes.
Which we need, that boost of energy to get up and do things, because if we never have any energy, we're just going to lay in bed and do nothing.
Yeah. But our body doesn't realize that these regular situations aren't life or death situations. And I talked about it in the tiger in the room thing. Your body can't tell the difference between a test and a tiger.
Right.
And you can't fight a test. And you can't run away from it.
Right.
So we
embrace
it.
Do
what?
We have to embrace it.
Embrace it.
Yes.
Hugging the test.
This is the test. I'm going to embrace it and do it and move forward. Forward.
But your body doesn't realize that this isn't something that it's not a threat that I can immediately battle. So we end up with these things, these unsolvable situations that we just have to get through. That's kind of where modern stress comes in versus prehistoric caveman stress.
Right.
Yeah. So
how do we stop the spinning then?
Well,
maybe go into that so that our listeners can understand. How do we stop this process of going over and over and over and over again? Because, we're in that downward spiral. So what do we do? How do we help our listeners understand? How do we put that stopgap in? Because we know that students are in that phase of making those choices of, staying up late and getting, activated. So what do we do to help them understand that these are normal things that all of us go through? We all we're on that octopus,
right?
Going around and around. But how do we stop it?
We have to metaphorically let go of the bar.
Okay.
So the first piece of that is recognizing, okay, I'm spiraling. Okay. What do I do to stop spiraling? I know that my anxiety is telling me I need to stay up all night and cram for this test. That is my anxiety saying that. But if I stay up and study for this test, the chances of me retaining that information are very small. I'm likely not going to positively impact my score, and I'm likely going to negatively impact my score. Right. So let's look at, is what I'm doing me pulling on that bar for security? And that's what that is, like the cramming, and the overconsumption of caffeine, the drinking, all of those things, those unhealthy coping mechanisms that we've talked about, and that dead horse we've beaten to death. Yeah. That is us grabbing that bar. Right. So we have to actually let go of that bar.
Right. I hear students a lot of times say, I've done this for a long time. This is my patterns of what I do. I've also heard, in our podcast, we've talked about this. You've mentioned this kind of like, what can I do that's a 1% change?
Yes.
And if we apply that theory to this, if it's been your routine since maybe even in high school, it's just been your routine to study late at night, how can you change that? Could you set a SMART goal that you could maybe at 5 o'clock when you're used to getting done with dinner, study for an hour? Or if you're normally gaming at 6 to 9, could you study from 6 to 9 and game from 9 to 11? How do you flip that up and do things different to make yourself utilize that time to where you stop that cortisol spiral?
Mm-hmm.
How do you flip things around to where you're being you feel more productive?
Well, and one of the things I challenge people with is if we're talking about 1% better, if I want, like, let's say that I'm staying up late and this is part of my routine, like you talked about, I can't make massive changes to my sleep schedule. Like, our bodies will reject it because we get into rhythms and our body gets to a rhythm, and it's not going to want to go to bed at 10 o'clock when I've been staying up till 2.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be wide awake. I'm going to be staring at the ceiling going, what now?
I do.
So I need to make small changes. So
Right.
let's go with the 1%. So if I'm pulling in that 1% theory, can I move that time up half an hour?
Right.
So if I normally study from 10 until midnight, can I start studying at 9:30?
Yeah.
And then, give that a week or two, and then now I'm studying at 9.
Yeah.
And it's that 1% better, because if I try to make a huge change to my schedule, oftentimes I'm not going to stick to it.
Right.
But if I make a small change to my schedule, it's not noticeable. And before I know it, I'm where I need to be.
Right.
And so it's getting rid of, like, addressing those unhealthy coping mechanisms. It's making those choices of, like, what can I do that's just slightly better than what I've been doing.
Right. I hear students say a lot of times, I'm just stuck in this pattern. I lose track of time. I forget, I'm gaming, or I'm talking to friends, or I'm, scrolling through TikTok or on Instagram, and I just kind of lose track of time. So set an alarm clock for yourself, you know, and, if you want to be doing something at 9 o'clock or 9:30, like you mentioned, set an alarm clock for yourself. Or maybe you're wanting to go to bed at 11 o'clock and you get lost in track of time of doing what you're doing. If you have an Apple phone, because I don't know about Android phones, maybe you can give some insight to this. In my health app, there's a way that you can set a bedtime reminder, and it'll give you about a 30-minute warning, maybe almost actually it's an hour warning, and it'll let you know it's time to wind down. And I don't know if you have that on your...
My Fitbit does it
Your
for
Fitbit
me.
does it, yeah. So it'll give you just that warning, so it's just kind of like that instinctive, oh, hey, it's time to prepare yourself to be doing something different. So it just kind of creates that stopgap in your mind. Of course, now you can choose to ignore that. But it does, at some point, as long as you set that intention to pay attention to it, and that's that space in your brain where you go, okay, I've just been reminded, now's the time to get prepared to do something different.
Well, and some routers allow you to set time limits on them, or set things where they, function differently.
Sure.
You can use devices. You can use the parental controls. You can absolutely use the parental controls on yourself.
Sure.
Like, you can.
That's great.
And so if I know that I have a problem with this thing and I want to do 1% better, I can set it up so that the parental controls kick on 30 minutes earlier, an hour earlier, whatever is that 1% for you, just so that it works. Now, I want to emphasize that when we're doing this, we're not taking the fun out.
No.
Like, we do not, we've talked about this before, and we've emphasized that fun is a basic need.
Yeah, absolutely. If you take away all the fun, you're going to become anxious. You're going to become depressed. You can't do that to yourself. You have to give yourself permission. You have to allow yourself to have that time, because that helps you be productive. That helps you not to have a cortisol spiral, because you're going to have a cortisol spiral if you're not having fun. I think it's important to engage yourself in those activities you enjoy. That loud and clear, hear that. Go do the things that you enjoy doing, but within reason, you set boundaries for yourself.
Yes.
I remember when I was in college, I had things I did that I truly enjoyed and I was engaged in. I actually taught aerobics. I ran. I was involved I was a president of the Recreation Leisure Studies Association. I was very involved when I was in college, but I also had to set time to study. And those things took precedence, and if I didn't give myself time to study, I got behind in my studies. But I had lots of times that I enjoyed spending time with my friends, and we were very active on campus, and we did a lot of fun things, but it was easy to get behind. And if I allowed those things to take precedence, it was easy to get behind because Friday nights, I worked Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and I drove 2 hours home, 2 hours back, because I lived on campus. But it was hard. There's hard times when you live away from home too, and for students who are out of state living here, or international students who are living here, it can be hard when you're away from home.
Right.
So
well, and we tend to think of that fun time and that sleep time as the two places that I can give. And but sometimes when we're looking at that, we have to think out of the box because the fun time and the sleep time, those things are necessary as well.
Right.
They're just as important. So I have to figure out how to think out of the box to make additional time in areas that I may be doing things a certain way because my brain has it in my head that they have to be done that way, and there's nobody that's going to show up and say, hey, it has to be done this way.
Right.
So do I have to, I've used the cereal example before. Can I make my dinner a combination of random things that I find that fit the food groups in order to eat my meals? I can do that. One of the examples that I talk about, like as far as like cleaning our shower, okay, you can get these little scrub brushes for your dishes. Fill this with the tube on the side of it that allows you to put soap in it, and it's got the scrubby brush on the other side. You can put that in your shower and mix Dawn dish, the Blue Dawn or whatever dish soap in with some vinegar, and now you've got a shower brush. A lot of people will just use that right before they get out of the shower, and now I've cut that time that I would have spent on the shower out, or on cleaning my shower out. It's finding those little shortcuts or those little pieces. We think that cleaning our house has to be a big event. Well, can I clean as I go? Because this will take me 1 minute now, and it'll take me 30 minutes later in the week. So what can I do to conserve time that way rather than pulling time from the things that are causing, allowing me to de-stress?
Right, sure. And, my mom ran a cleaning business for 15 years. And one of the ways she always kept her shower clean was she kept a squeegee in her shower. That was the easiest way to keep the shower clean.
That's awesome.
And so she would squeegee the walls off every time she finished a shower. And it's just the long squeegee them down. And you can get that mist that you clean
the leave-on shower
leave
spray.
on the shower spray. You could use that, squeegee it down, and she did the base of the shower floor and sprayed it down with the wand every time. It was clean. Her shower was never dirty. I mean, and that was just like the instant way to clean the shower, And it's like when you live over in the dorms, like you can squeegee the walls down. It literally, I do mine because we have a glass shower, but it literally takes a minute to clean your shower every time you get out. I do the floors. I use the squeegee on the floors. A minute. That's it. And compared to actually cleaning the shower, where it would take 30 minutes to 45 minutes to clean the shower, if you had to do that weekly basis, heck, I'm doing the minute each day.
Well, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. In the hacks that work or the things that work for one person don't necessarily, like each person's got their own little combination of things that work for them. But it's finding ways to save energy in the places that you don't need to spend it as much and spend that energy in the other places. So we, like I said, we find these things that the 1 minute rule. That's a big one. The 1 minute rule is if a task takes under a minute to do, just do it. So if I am going to get a new drink in the kitchen, what am I going to do? I'm going to reach my hands out and I'm going to glance around the table or whatever I'm sitting at. Is there any trash or are there any dishes? And then I'm going to grab them, and when I walk in the kitchen, I'm going to throw the trash away, I'm going to throw the dishes in the sink, and then I'm going to grab my new drink. Does that take me very long?
No.
Okay. What's that opposed to me once a week trying to clean off my desk if I never do that?
Right.
Like if I do that every time I go get a drink, now I don't have to clean my desk once a week other than maybe wipe it off. Now if I use the time, like if I'm doing my dishes in the kitchen, and then I talk about disinfectant wipes. Those are usually fairly cheap. They're easy to use, or you can even make your own.
Yeah.
And you take that, you wipe off your counters, and now I go through and I just go to different surfaces and take 2 seconds to wipe everything. And now I don't have to dust at the end of the week because I went through, and various times where I've done these things, I've taken 30 seconds to a minute to just wipe down whatever.
It's good suggestions. You know, when you're talking about this cortisol spiral and how, you know, people just kind of like everything just kind of keeps coming down and keep coming down. One of the things I think I'm hearing you talk about, that kind of underlying tone, is there's kind of like some basics. You know, if you kind of like break everything down, there's just kind of like simple things that have to kind of happen, you know, and you're paying attention to those like just basics.
Yeah.
And you kind of break it all down, like the minute type activity, paying attention. Being intentional. Being intentional. I think that's really important. We get so overwhelmed with stress, and when our brain is just hardwired to be over, like out here and like everything's just too much. When we kind of bring that down into the basics, like some of the basics are just enough nutrition, enough hydration, eating, you know, getting the vitamins and nutrition, you know, setting ourselves up with enough sleep, you know, looking at things from a very intentional space. It's not as stressful, it's not as overwhelming, and we just kind of stop that. Like you said, your wonderful example of the octopus of running, you know, around and around and around and around. We take our hands off the bar.
Yes.
Things kind of slow down and things come into perspective.
Well, and it is that thinking out of a box, too. Because a lot of those things, we get stuck on those routines because that's the way we've always done it, and it has to be done this particular way. If I cook a meal, I have to go through the entire process of 30 minutes making a meal. Who says?
There's no hard rule that you have to do that.
Yeah, like we just take it down to bare basics.
Yeah.
Like ask yourself why. Why does it have to be done this way? Can I cut time here and then make sure I'm still getting my recreation time?
Right.
Am I using this unhealthy coping mechanism, and why am I using it, and how do I reduce its impact or lessen my use of it?
Right.
And it's just asking that why question.
Yeah. Why, how, what, when?
Yeah. How do I do this in a way where I can reduce my stress and that 1% better?
Yeah, that's good. Very
Okay.
good.
So, thank you for joining us this week, miners. And
let go of the bar.
let go of the bar. Let go of the bar.
Let go of the bar.
And we will see you next week.
Take care. If you like this podcast, please remember to like and subscribe. To schedule an appointment or to reach out to us about future topics you would like to see, please email us at wellbeing@mst.edu. You can also reach us by phone at 573-341-4211. We are located at 204 Norwood Hall.
I accept the challenge.
Get out there and do your best!
Hey, go easy on yourself. Come on now.
Now you're talking!
For more mental health and well-being content, please follow us on Facebook at Missouri S&T Wellbeing and on Instagram at S&T Wellbeing.
But most importantly,
Never give up.